Right about a year ago, there was a classic moment in the history of American fact-checking. It all started in the heat of the scrutiny against ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, over family separations in the detainment of people crossing the southern border illegally. A significant number of Democratic politicians were calling for the total abolition of the agency. Activists were doxing ICE agents. They also harassed then Homeland Security Secretary Kirstjen Nielsen at a D.C. restaurant.
Kirstjen Nielsen is in a Mexican restaurant of all places. The fucking goal. Shame on you!
Shame! And Texas concentration camps!
And Texas concentration camps!
Yeah, concentration camps for people trying to get in. I guess I missed all those Jews desperately trying to enter Nazi Germany. I think history may have turned out differently if concentration camp victims had the option simply to turn around and walk away instead, but all of this was the context for vicious animosity against ICE, with left-wing activists looking for any opportunity to undermine or damage border security personnel. And of course, that strategy included combing through social media, scraping the bottom of every barrel looking for things to criticize, and eventually Twitter activists and the recreationally offended arrived at this tweet from ICE, posted in May of last year. It's promoting what they call ICE Hero Corps, a program for wounded veterans to receive training in skills to assist federal agents in the fight against online child exploitation. It's not even about immigration. It's about stopping child predators while providing good jobs and skills training to those who sacrificed for this country. That seems like something we could all agree on. Yeah, but you may have missed one crucial detail. Take a second look and you'll clearly see a Nazi tattoo on his left elbow. Scrolling through the replies, you can still find the remnants of this reactionary myth that this guy supposedly has a Nazi Iron Cross tattoo, but if you look closely, it's actually rounded. Not really even that close to the Nazi Iron Cross, and even an ADL senior researcher says, guys, chill out. Even if it was an Iron Cross, that would still probably be innocuous. There's no evidence for extremism here. So why does he have this rounded cross tattoo? Well, because that's the symbol of his Marine platoon. As you can probably surmise from the photo, he was wounded by IED in Afghanistan on his third deployment. And by the way, none of this should be at all surprising. You would think even a quick look at this photo would prompt one to investigate before throwing around the Nazi in a Marine Corps wheelchair accusation, but this whole situation developed with an accuse first, ask questions later attitude. And that's a lazy and irresponsible approach even for just your random anonymous Twitter user, let alone a professional fact checker, someone whose job it is to reserve conclusions and judgment until sufficient information can be discovered. You'll notice that the ICE statement calls out Talia Lavin and the New Yorker by name, referring to the journalist who was at the time a fact checker for that magazine for 3 years running. According to the initial report from the Tampa Bay Times, Talia was one of the primary drivers of this negligent smear, although I haven't been able to find record of the original tweet in question. It seems pretty well scrubbed from the internet. She says herself she deleted it within 15 minutes. While she did apologize to the Marine veteran for the misinformation, she also played the victim, saying it's not acceptable for a federal agency to target a private citizen for a good faith, hastily rectified error. But it is somehow acceptable for a journalist to target a private citizen with a Nazi smear, of course. And how is it good faith to throw around this type of defamation without any genuine attempt to assess the facts first? Well, that's probably the reason she resigned from that fact-checking job. I suspect that was a mandatory resignation, as charitable a boot out the door as possible, considering Talia immediately took to Twitter to panhandle for people to subsidize her botchery. But as irresponsible as this episode was, it still was just one episode. We all make mistakes. What's important is learning from those mistakes and improving. Trouble is, Talia hasn't really learned anything. She still makes the same spurious attacks against her political opponents for a living, all under the flimsy premise of being some watchdog, being some objective fact finder. After the New Yorker, she was hired by Media Matters because, of course, goes to show integrity in information is not actually Media Matters' focus, only political hit jobs. jobs. There she propped up Becca Lewis's infamous YouTube Nazi spiderweb study, ripping Dave Rubin for not sufficiently proving he isn't a white supremacist. She's also written freelance for several publications, including recently in the Washington Post, where she linked Ben Shapiro to the Christchurch shooter, all because he called the Notre Dame Cathedral a monument to Western civilization. She's not a watchdog. She's an attack dog. Worse still, one who cries victimization when you bite her back. This half year of partisan, factually challenged hackery led up to perhaps the most baffling second chance of all, the announcement that Talia Lavin had been hired by New York University as an adjunct journalism professor to teach an undergraduate course called Reporting on the Far Right, scheduled for the upcoming fall semester. Speaking with The Wrap upon the announcement, one anonymous NYU journalism student questioned the decision to hire Talia for this class, saying, "I can sympathize with Lavin's politics, but I don't know why someone who had to quit her journalism job for falsely implying someone is a Nazi should be teaching at NYU. There are plenty of reporters out there in need of work who haven't made a mistake like that." NYU declined to comment, and it appeared that would be that. They weren't going to cave to public pressure, and NYU journalism students would get the option to pay thousands of dollars to be indoctrinated in the ways of blindly partisan journalistic malpractice, or not. Well, registration for fall semester has come and gone, and lo and behold, the students chose not. That's right, it wasn't public pressure, it wasn't Talia's past indiscretions, anything like that. No, the school canceled the class because, quote, too few students enrolled. And you can actually eliminate a word from that explanation. They canceled the class because 2 students enrolled, according to Adam Pennenberg, director of undergraduate studies at NYU's journalism school.
2. Just 2.
Well, I can't figure out just 2.
Out of 26,000 NYU students and hundreds of declared journalism majors, only 2 thought Talia's class would be a worthwhile use of their time and money. And maybe not even that. We don't know who these kids are. They might have signed up for the laughs and the trolling. Who knows? Due to that anemic enrollment, the journalism school director says Talia won't be invited back in all likelihood. But only one thing is for sure. The one thing we can count on throughout all of these developments, that Talia is definitely the victim. Again, responding to the author of this story about her failed class, she says, here's some other hot news of a private nature and no public relevance. She recently went on a date with a guy and asked him for a kiss, and he said, "I don't know what to say." She has strong body odor she struggles to control and a months-old pimple on her nose. She once threw a very elaborate theme party in college, and no one came. Despite her tenuous record with facts, I'll take her word on these claims. They all seem entirely believable. But the hypocrisy here is glaring. Supposedly the personal details of her life are irrelevant, and you're a ridiculous hack if you publish them. But the personal details of other people's lives, the personal details of combat disabled Homeland Security workers, are of immediate national importance. But in Talia's case, it's not just personal information. It's false information. She doesn't just publish irrelevant news. She outright fakes it and then claims it's the people responding to her nonsense who actually have backward priorities. So we'll see where she goes from here. Perhaps a change in academic discipline is in order to revitalize her career. She may not have been a compelling journalism professor, but I can foresee a future in victimology. Thanks as always for listening and for supporting this channel always. Appreciate that thoughtful discussion down below, and especially over on Twitter, that is at ML Christiansen. You're always welcome to coming out and chat in my live streams. Those are linked down in the description. Looking forward to it. Goodbye.